Okay, next up we have Stafford Township Police Chief James Haldenwang. Chief is a 24-year department veteran appointed in 2024 who leads the agency with a focus on community-oriented policing and officer well-being. He will be joined by Manchester Township's Chief Antonio Ellis, President of the New Jersey Police Traffic Officers Association. Please come up, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jim Haldenwang, Chief of Police here in Stafford Township. And I would like to thank all of you for welcoming me here to talk about public safety. And, I guess the question is, why am I at a Chamber of Commerce event talking about public safety? And it's because people support businesses when they feel safe, when they feel like they can, when they feel like it's a place for them to go and they're going to be okay while they're there. And I'm truly blessed to be the chief here in Stafford Township. I know that this is a safe community. I put my time in on the road. I put my time in the detective bureau. I was in undercover narcotics. I spent time as a sergeant making sure that I mentored the men and women of the police department. And one of the biggest things that I focused on wasn't just public safety, but public treatment. I see my buddy Coach almost every Saturday, and every time I see him, he asks me the same question. Well, Jimmy, who's winning? The cops or the robbers? The good guys or the bad guys? And every time I say the same thing back to him, it's a close game, Coach. And for a long time, especially when I was a rookie cop, I really did believe that it was a game of us versus them. And cops versus robbers, good guys versus the bad guys. And a lot of times we deal with 10% of the population that's the problem population 90% of the time. And over time, my view started to change. I realized that most people who break the law aren't so different than you or me. They made a bad decision, sometimes under pressure, sometimes under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And don't get me wrong, there are hardened criminals out there. They're truly dangerous people and evil people in the world, and we have to deal with them harshly and quickly. But most of the people that I arrested in 25 years of law enforcement were just people who made a mistake. So if this is a game of us versus them, good versus bad, but the people we arrest are mostly regular people, sometimes our neighbors, sometimes our friends, sometimes our family, how exactly do we win? My own brother once had a warrant for a traffic issue that he didn't satisfy, and he was arrested. I had a friend of mine who got a DWI. He's the greatest guy in the world. He'd give you the shirt off his back. Are they now bad people? Is it really us versus them? At some point, the game and my perspective started to change. In Genesis, God creates Adam and Eve. He gives them paradise. Everything in the garden is theirs. And they just have one simple rule. Don't eat from the tree of knowledge. And what do? They eat the apple, right? First thing they do, as soon as they get tempted, they eat the apple. They get kicked out of the garden. And sometimes it just seems like one law is too many for humankind, right? And even if you view the Bible simply as a story, the message is consistent. Later, humanity is so corrupt that God floods the earth, right? Tries to start all over, and that doesn't work. So then he sends his only son to come here and redeem us. And when Jesus meets a crowd of people that are about to stone someone to death, he says, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, and nobody could throw the stone. The lesson's clear. Humanity is flawed. We cannot follow every rule perfectly, even if those rules are given to us by God himself. So what chance do we have of winning? By dividing people into good and bad based on whether they broke the law. We can't. It's a zero-sum game. I'm not saying we should give up. We may not be able to perfect the human condition, but we can make a difference. Accountability creates change. I had a kid who was heading down the wrong path, stopped me at Wawa, it was only about 2 weeks ago, and he said, I'm an electrician's apprentice. And it was so important to me, he was so proud of himself that he was no longer on that bad path. And it was important for him to tell me that he had a new direction in life and that things were going well. I had a young lady in her 20s, when I was a sergeant, come into the police department and thank me for arresting her and getting her into rehab. She said her entire life was changed in that night, and she was so happy that she was no longer a slave to that addiction. I had a young man stop me at my 3 sons' market. His wife was beside him, his kids were in a stroller, and he went, "Jim, I'm out of the game." And he pointed proudly to his family. That's all the proof that I need that this is not us versus them. Public safety and community caretaking mean we make a difference. We can't fix the human condition, but we can set the example. We can call foul. We can hold people accountable, and accountability creates change. In every hero's journey, the main character changes. And that's why we love stories so much, because they resonate with us. I know I've changed. I'm not the same man that I was 25 years ago when I took the oath. And many of the people that I arrested back then, they changed too. Just as it's human to err, it's also human to grow and change. This can't be about winning or losing. It has to be about making a difference, because that's the only chance that we have. The truth is, none of us ever really know what kind of a difference we can make in somebody else's life. And oftentimes we never find out, but we are all an example to other people. Adam and Eve faced consequences. They were banished from Eden. But even after being thrown out of paradise, humanity still had opportunities for redemption. As police officers, our job isn't to win the game. Our job is to uphold the law and to recognize the humanity in the people that we deal with, even when they make mistakes, especially when they make mistakes. We hold the line, we guard the sheep from the wolf, and we create public safety. But what does that mean? Public safety is such a wide umbrella, right? It's far more than just enforcing the laws or responding to calls for service. Public safety touches every aspect of our daily life. How we interact with one another, how we respond to people in crisis, and how we balance enforcement with compassion. Public safety includes the most difficult and sensitive situations officers face. Use of force decisions that they make in seconds, encounters with emotionally disturbed people, drug overdoses, traffic safety, and domestic violence incidents. In each of these situations, they're complex. Each carries risk, and each requires sound judgment and humanity. One of the most important principles I've learned in 25 years is we can only enforce the law with the consent of the people. And that consent is not automatic, it's not permanent. We have to earn it every day through professionalism, fairness, and legitimacy. Over the course of my career, I've seen a marked shift in what the public expects from law enforcement, and rightfully so. Communities want safety, but they also want their dignity. They want transparency. They want officers who can enforce the law when necessary, but who can also slow situations down and communicate effectively, and recognize when enforcement alone isn't the solution. That shift is especially evident in how we respond to people in crisis. These situations can't be resolved with authority alone. They require understanding, patience, and skill. Last year, I had the opportunity to travel to Scotland and participate in a program that helped shape how we approach these challenges today. That program played a role in bringing modern crisis response concepts to law enforcement here in the United States, including programs like ICAT and ABLE. These programs emphasize communication, de-escalation, and intervention. They teach officers how to slow things down, create time and distance, and resolve situations without force whenever possible. Just as importantly, they reinforce the idea that every officer has a responsibility not only for their actions, but for the actions of the other officers that are around them. This isn't about being soft on crime. It's about being smart. It's about being professional. It's about being effective. Use of force is always going to be a part of policing, but it has to be lawful, necessary, proportional, and a last resort. The goal is always the same: protect life, protect community, and to ensure that everybody goes home safely. Public safety today demands more from law enforcement than ever before. It demands training, self-reflection, and a willingness to evolve. But when we get it right, we strengthen trust, improve outcomes, and reinforce the legitimacy that allows us to do our jobs. At the end of the day, public safety is not just about laws or policies. It's certainly not about us versus them. Public safety is about people. And I'm proud to have had the opportunity to serve the people of Stafford Township for over 25 years. Thank you very much. I almost forgot. Next up, we have Antonio Ellis, a good friend of mine. He's the chief of Manchester Township. He sits on the board of traffic safety, and he's got a message for you about traffic safety today.
Thank you, Chief. Well, I tell you what, that's a tough act to follow right there. The chief is very eloquent in his speaking. He says he doesn't like the public speak, and I find that to be contrary to what I just observed. And when he came to me, he said, listen, we want you to speak about traffic safety and how that affects commerce. And I go, let me think about that a little bit. So a little bit of backstory about myself. So I'm currently the chief of Manchester Township. I've been with the Manchester Police for 25 years, too, similar to Chief Haldenwang. We've had a whole career, right? And listening to Commissioner Sadehi talk about VOTEC, my son is in the VOTEC program in Jackson. He's an auto tech, and he's working as an auto mechanic. So I do see how the connection with the future of Ocean County is with our workers and our children and in their education. My wife is an educator in the district in Toms River, so I am a lifelong learner myself, having went back to school and got my master's when I was in the police department with 2 small kids. So that being said, I'm currently the president of the Ocean County, well actually the New Jersey, I was the Ocean County safety officer, but the New Jersey Traffic Safety Officers Association. That's a professional organization that statewide, so New Jersey is a big state, handles bringing together all of our stakeholders. Now, who are stakeholders? Stakeholders are, the Brain Injury Alliance, Motor Vehicle Commission, state police, to really look at how we can help safety and improve safety in the state. Looking at how it affects commerce. And this was a good question, like how does this help everybody in this room? How does it reflect with them? Motor vehicle crashes carry significant financial costs. Medical expenses for emergency response, hospital care, and long-term rehabilitation are all factors that we have to consider when it comes to traffic crashes. The increased insurance premiums, everybody knows, especially the business owners in here, how insurance has gone up significantly over the years. Well, that affects both the individuals as well as the commercial fleets. Property damage costs, infrastructure and commercial property damage from crashes can affect your bottom dollar, your employees, and everything about your business. Think about when an employee gets hurt, that loss in productivity, when they're injured and now unable to work. That affects you as a business owner. It's not to also say that there isn't a personal and human cost to this. In my career, I have seen more tragedy and more death as a crash investigator than most. I'm an accredited accident reconstructionist, and when the worst of the worst crashes happen in not only Ocean County, but in Manchester Township, I was one of the lead investigators. And I've seen more death and more ghosts than I care to remember, which leaves a scar and a trace on you. That human cost is real. Thinking about what happens to the people after the crash, right? We clear the scene and we do everything else. It's that long-term, life-altering effect that has on families for generations, for losing a loved one or being permanently disabled. Not to mention that emotional and psychological toll that it takes on families, on co-workers, and the community itself. A long-term disability from a serious crash can affect and experienced workers in the labor force and allow them to not go back to what they had previously done to provide for their family. Do any of you know that in Ocean County in 2025, we had 63 fatalities? Now everybody says it's an accident, it's an accident. It's not, it's a motor vehicle crash. It's not an accident. These things don't just happen. There's usually a series of circumstances that causes that. But we led the state up significantly, a 25% increase from 2024 in fatalities in Ocean County. So we look at it, and the Chiefs Association said, what are we doing wrong? What can we do? What meaningful enforcement can we bring to help reduce those crashes? So we've actually worked with our partners at the state. We've secured a grant through the prosecutor's office, and we're going to be doing a meaningful enforcement county-wide initiative or task force to really identify the areas where these crashes occurred and how we can best prevent or reduce those crashes. You know, statewide in 2025, we were down below 500 or 600 fatalities for the first time since COVID, since 2020. But yet, Ocean County was up 25%. So our role regionally needs to be looked at, even though throughout the state we had that reduction. Every fatal crash represents not only a family tragedy, but also an economic loss to your community. So that direct impact that we see on businesses. Traffic closures can cause road detours, congestions, delay of delivery, and employee commuter times, right? We have that crash, it slows everything down. You can't get to work on time. Your commuter trucks, your delivery trucks can't get to where they have to go. So that also affects consumer mobility. And it can limit access to local businesses when we have to have these road closures because of these crashes. Commercial vehicle supplies, again, can disrupt that supply chain and increase your operational costs. We all know there's a cost for diesel fuel, there's a cost for shipping. That has all gone up exponentially. We see it even on the municipal side when we're purchasing things from the agency. Everything has gone up. Businesses may face a higher insurance and liability expense because of those serious crashes. So with that strain, there's also a strain on emergency services. And we know that, especially in the southern part of the county, it's something we've talked about, getting EMS, getting volunteers. You know, there was a problem that we've started to identify, I know countywide and talking to the commissioners, that there's this lack of response of EMS, emergency services. You know, it's tough to get the volunteers out. They have to work 2-3 jobs. They're not available. And I know the county is working on some initiatives to increase that coverage. You know, the northern end of the county, it's a little bit different, but the southern end has definitely had some holes that we're looking to fill. The increased municipal costs for road repairs, traffic control, and investigations, right? It costs money to go out there and bring the engineers out and have them come look at the roads. How can we improve the roads safely? What do we need to do to change the traffic patterns, especially as we have these increases in congestion because we have more people moving to Ocean County? That traffic flow and community perception is actually something most people don't look at. And I bet you some of you sitting in this room right now may think, a safer road encourages consumers to have more confidence and to help with regional growth, right? If you know that that's a deadly road or a deadly intersection, it's in the news, people aren't going to want to go down that way. They're not going to want to travel to that town and endorse your businesses. So communities perceived as unsafe or congested can experience that tourism loss or investment. Here we are going right down to the island, LBI, not too far away, and if we know that the roads are constantly closed because they're unsafe, there's crashes, there's delays, there's not enough improvements being done, nobody's going to want to go to the island and go to their summer home or go down and enjoy the shore. And it's the same up in our neck of the woods, up in Toms River and up by Point Pleasant. Those shore areas are draws for people in the summertime. That's where we make our money as consumers and as businesses, you know, so it's important to have that. Efficient traffic flow supports local commerce, delivery, and schedules for employee and punctuation, right? We want our employees to show up on time. So if the roadways are safe, they can get to where they need to go, there's no delays from these crashes, it allows us to get to where we want to be. At the end of the day, it's a shared responsibility in law enforcement, right, to do our job, but also with our stakeholders, our community partners, the engineer's office, with, you know, the state partners for the traffic, for the state roads, you know, for all of law enforcement and our emergency responders. Employers, supported by safe driving policies and flexible schedules, can also help reduce during peak congestion time. One of the things we do, especially with the Traffic Officers Association, is we like to do these public campaigns. And you may see the signs on the overheads on the state highways, drive sober, get pulled over. You may see click it or ticket. These safety campaigns that go out on social media. And there's all these types of efforts to try to improve safety. And like the chief said, the laws are there for a reason, and those laws, when we have those people that choose to not obey those laws, are why we have a lot of the problems. So it's important that we work with our partners to increase the infrastructure, the safety improvements, and get that measurable return in both safety and economic stability. So what I'd really like to end with, in closing for everybody here, is traffic safety is not just a public safety issue, right? It's not just the police's problem. It's an economic stability issue. Every prevented crash protects a family member, preserves a workforce member, and keeps our local economy moving. And that concludes my speech. Thank you very much for your time.